Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the April 16th National REIA call. Giving you guys some updates, the REIA Now update. We'll give a few minutes for everybody to come in and join us. Mr. Whaley with the whiteboard back there. I like it. I like it. Hello, Jane. Kevin must be in a pair of shorts and a t-shirt because he didn't want to show himself on camera today. Good afternoon, guys. There's Chintal. Good afternoon, Mr. Patel. You can just give me a thumbs up. We'll unmute you later. Can you hear us okay? There we go. There's Kevin. He got dressed real quick, got on camera. That's what we call business up top, party below, right?
Mr. President, are you suggesting that the mullet is coming back in style?
I mean, you know, I think a lot of things are going to come back in style. It's unavoidable. That's why I always say just keep the haircut, because eventually 10 years later it's going to come back in style again.
I was just hoping it would come back.
Yeah, exactly. I still get caught by those commercials of like, hey, this shampoo will make your hair grow back. I'm like, really? All right. Well, I think we have everybody in. So good afternoon. For those of you guys just joining us, welcome to the April 16th REIA Now update, National REIA. We've got a great panel for you guys today. Of course, we have some updates on what's going on in our situation in the country and COVID as well. And I'm going to turn it over to our Executive Director, Rebecca McLean, to do our initial announcements.
Thanks, Ryan. Welcome, everyone, to the session today. It will be on rehabbing in the COVID era. So we're really excited to hear insights from those that are being very active in the rehab community. Ryan Kuhlman, our president, is actually going to lead the discussion today as he is very actively involved in multiple markets with rehabbing. We also are going to have two special guests with us, Chantal Patel and Frank Zatillo, and they'll both be talking about what they're seeing in the market from their perspectives as well. We also have their contact information, which I'll show you in just a moment. It will also be shown at the end of the session, and it will come out to you in the wrap up. Just a quick disclaimer, we are going to be talking about a couple of financial pieces of information and maybe even a couple legal pieces today, but we are not attorneys, don't plan to represent you, and it is just our opinions. So please see your local professional if you need that information. We also thank Home Depot Pro, as always, as our sponsor for these sessions. We have a great program with them through National REIA. If you're interested in learning more about the rebates and the discounts and other special pieces of the program, make sure that you visit us and one of your local REIAs to be able to get more information. We've been around helping investors like you for over 35 years now, and we thank you so much for being here. If you need to find information, you can get the COVID information here, and you can get the information on where to find your local REIA here on the website. So just really quickly, here's the quick preview of the contact information for Frank, Chantel, and then Ryan, which you have through our website as he is our current president. So we'll show this slide again at the end of the presentation, and it will be coming out to you in your wrap up. So you will have this, be able to reach out to them after the session. But I'm going to stop sharing screen and turn this over to the panel so they can have as much time as possible for the information for today.
Excellent.
Ryan, take it away.
Thank you very much. Well, first I want to go ahead and just introduce our panelists. What we'll do is we'll just kind of do a quick round robin, just to kind of explain, tell them, the audience, who you are and what territories that you're in. Obviously, Frank will be talking about lending as well. So let's go ahead and start with Frank Tassell of Lending Homes. Welcome, Frank.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Thank you so much. So, yeah, Frank Tassell with Lending Home. We are a hard money fix and flip and rental property lender. I've been with the company about 1.5 years right now. I've been in mortgage, residential mortgage, over 20 years. And I tell you, business is booming. So I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have on fix and flips or even investment property rentals.
Awesome. And Frank and Lending Home have been corporate members of the Broward and Miami-Dade Real Estate Investors Associations for many years. We actually have credit lines that we use with them. They have incredible programs and products for rehabbing, where they're lending on the acquisition and lending on the rehab as well. So again, like Rebecca had said, Frank's information for Lending Home will be on the slide afterwards and in the email as well. So, and Frank, you guys are lending. Give us an idea of where Lending Home is lending money at.
Yeah, so we're lending in 27 states, and I can go through those here in a second. Let me get that slide up. But we're lending in 27 states. We're doing quite a lot of business in California, Florida. Let me just get my list of states here if you want to go through that. Give me a minute to get that list of states. Do you have another question while I pull that up?
Well, what we'll do is while we get into the states, and we're going to be talking about different markets as well when it comes to lending, because as a reflection of what's going on in rehabbing, obviously where the money is flowing to is going to give us a lot of those answers as well. So in the meantime, let's introduce our other panelist, Chintal Patel, coming to us from New Jersey. How you doing, sir?
Ryan, how are you? Thank you.
Good.
Thank you so
much. This guy
much.
doesn't look like a rehabber, man. He's got the style and jacket and shirt on. I mean,
listen, this is all for you guys, if I'm honest. Okay.
Yeah. So is this button down, because I usually don't even dress like this.
Absolutely.
So give us a little bit of background on you, where you guys are doing your rehabs.
Yeah. First of all, it's an honor to be on. Thank you so much for having me, and everyone that's attending. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, so my name is Chintal. I own Awesome Homes Real Estate. So like it says, we build awesome homes. We operate in Central and South Jersey, which I know for you guys, it's not as big as Florida is, but we still like to differentiate the two. But yes, so we operate as a fix and flip company. We also offer turnkey investments to buyers that are looking for cash flow property.
Very good. Okay. And for those of you guys that don't know, I am in South Florida. I've been in real estate for about 20 years. And right now I'm rehabbing in South Florida, Central Florida, and North Florida as well. We have almost 10 projects going on right now. We just picked up several other projects, including a brand new build, which was sort of by mistake. We bid on a tax lien property, and when we went to the property after we won the bid, there was no property there any longer. The county had demoed it already, but that's okay, because we got it for $20,000, which was less than the land value anyways, so it all worked out. I'm also doing a couple of rehabs in Ohio. Just finished a couple. We started a couple more, and I'm looking at the Charlotte, North Carolina area as well. So I'll be talking just a little bit about some of those areas and what we're seeing in rehabbing. So Frank, if you want to talk just a little bit in regards to, let's kind of reflect a little bit. I mean, as we say, to know where somebody is at now, you got to see where where they've been. So let's talk about 2019, the year before the pandemic, when we had no idea there was going to be anything even remotely like COVID-19 coming up on the scene. And in 2019, how are things at Lending Home and rehabbing, lending rehabbers money in 2019?
Yeah, so in 2019, Ryan, Lending Home was really focused on the fix and flip. Like you said, getting the acquisition, 100% of the rehab, going along fine. So we've been growing since 2014, actually. So, a lot of business coming our way. And then when the COVID happened, we kind of cut back a little bit, not as much as our competition. We cut back on a little bit on the guidelines, maybe like 5% on the LTVs, raised the fees a little bit. But really shortly thereafter, kind of like around in June of 2020, we reversed all that. So the trend has really been, really happy to say that we're getting more aggressive again. We've opened up that credit box. We've restored kind of like the lower end of the credit scores that we were lending in, increased the LTVs, LTCs more. So we've really captured a lot more market share, Ryan, and we've actually added the rental program as well. So we're not just doing fix and flip, but that might be what your audience is most interested in. But we have plenty of experience with that, and really to our benefit, we've been able to expand the credit box and the product offering that we have.
Okay. So right now, Frank, in 2021, as the beginning of 2021, obviously, actually, I just saw a post this morning that Miami Beach now has no curfew. And the amount of crowds of people out in the streets last night at like 1 a.m. was ridiculous. So, but things, opening up everywhere a little bit. Obviously we still have our social distancing and these kind of things. But are you seeing now, like Lending Home, in regards to your rehabbers across the country, you're seeing that now an increase in 2021?
Yeah, I mean, so to be fair about it, we really increased in 2020 as well. So we didn't really backslide at all. So even though we cut back a little bit on the credit box, our business has increased. We've been hiring people. Okay, my sales team grew in 2020. Our internal staff grew, and really our partners. We've grown a lot of partners, and we're seeing so many people just having success in the market right now. A very strong market. So some of the challenges with just getting appraisals early on or valuations early on, maybe people not being able to access the property, those have kind of gone away. Okay, and I do have that list of states here if you wanted to talk about that, Ryan. But we've seen just tremendous opportunity in the market. Our partners, our investors have seen a lot of opportunity, and we don't see it slowing down right now.
Okay, and we'll talk about those list of states in a little bit, because what we kind of also want to do is give the audience a little bit of an idea from a large lender like Lending Home, where you're seeing pockets around the country. I know that you guys are seeing that with a little bit more lending in certain areas that might be more hot than other areas. But so let's go to Chantal. And am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah, Chintal.
Chintal. Okay, perfect. There we go.
Nice.
So Chintal, do the same thing. Rewind back in 2019 and give us a little bit of comparison coming into 2020, and then what effects did the pandemic have on your operations there in Jersey?
Oh, absolutely, man. We've seen tremendous changes. 2019, we've obviously had a lot more inventory back then. Now the inventory is just so small. Just to give you an idea, it's 47.8% less compared to just last year.
Wow.
Right? So that's how many houses are not hitting the market. So in terms of that, you obviously have less supply. That's going to inevitably increase the price. So, just to give you another idea, last year, our median home price was $296. This year it's $360. So, and then just to paint the picture for you, the year 2019 was $270, and then it jumped to $296. So you can clearly see from $296 to $360 within a year is just absolutely insane.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've seen that.
Yeah. So during the pandemic, and obviously with the shutdown that affected everybody, but throughout 2020 and right now, so you guys are not having any issues in regards to there's no social distancing issues and things like that. But how about supplies? Talk to us a little bit about, you guys running into any of the lumber supply issues, window supply?
So as you know, here in the Northeast, we do everything frame construction. Before you even go inside of a house, you need to go pick up lumber. That's just how it is, right? So, we've seen the price of lumber go almost 4x within the last year. So it's absolutely brutal. So just to give you an idea, on one of our flips, we were going to install a handrail on the outside and on the outside front and the backyard. We calculated I think it was $1,200 in materials. By the time we got to that job, couple weeks later, it ended up being 3-4 times that price just to even get it done.
Wow.
Right? So it's difficult to kind of figure out what your costs are going to be. But at the same token, the prices are going up so high that you can get these things done and still make a great deal of profit.
Right, absolutely. And just to give you guys some reflection in regards to rehabbing in South Central Florida and North Florida, which I guess I could just say the state of Florida. We're not running into as many of the labor, the lumber issues, obviously, because we're pretty much CBS construction here.
Yeah.
Now, some of our houses in North or Central Florida, we do run into some more frame houses. We haven't had really as much of a lumber issue as we have had trying to get things like windows. We have two projects in Florida that have been held up another 8 weeks because we're waiting on hurricane impact windows. And I'm not sure if I don't know if that's really from a demand standpoint or from a manufacturing standpoint, that the manufacturing had slowed down through 2020 and just did not have the supply. Yeah. I don't think that there's so many, brand new rehabs that are going on right now that's why we're at a loss. And Chintal, I see you shaking your head, so you're feeling pretty much the same thing. It's not just the increase of that. If these manufacturers are like, yeah, we weren't able to produce as much in 2020, it all got eaten up.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, especially for lumber. Lumber took a huge hit within the last 12 months on the supply side, plus the demand side. I mean, you have more people at home, right? So you have more DIY projects going on. You have more stuff being built around the backyard and, living spaces inside the home. So that's going to eat up some more demand. And then at the same token, if the supply is not coming in, you're going to see something like this happen. And it's crazy.
Yeah. So the rehabs here in Florida, it's interesting comparing them to the rehabs that I'm doing in Ohio. In Ohio, it's around the Cincinnati and Dayton areas. And I think that it's just, I don't know if it's necessarily an inventory issue, but the properties in Ohio are literally staying on the market 24 hours or less.
Wow.
The amount of multiple offers that we're getting. And I'm even seeing end buyers. We had a couple sight unseen, which usually you don't see in retail. People love to come to the house. They love to come to the open house. But people are, all over. I have another rehab in Delray Beach that's a condo in a 55 plus community. We did a couple 55 plus properties thinking, okay, the trend is everybody from Chintal's area up in New Jersey and New York are going to be, relocating down here to Florida. And the interesting thing is the same thing is that I'm getting calls. Our listing agent is getting calls from like California, New York, Chicago, and people are asking questions. And we literally have had several requests. Can you send me a video of the interior of it? Did you take a video so I can see what it looks like to make my offer? So that's been kind of interesting as well here for Florida. In Ohio, it's not really a sight unseen situation. It's just more or less, when a property goes up on the market, it does not last. And I actually have my sister in Ohio as well, who is also a licensed agent, and she's been handling a few listings and the retail side. And she said the same thing. She had a couple clients that were qualified. I mean, had conventional financing up to $450,000. They were coming in with 20%. They had like an 800 credit score, and they got beat out on the first 3 properties. And the other trend that we're kind of seeing too. So 2019, in the state of Florida, obviously we were ramping up coming into this 2020 market with housing prices, increasing. And we actually started increasing even more in the beginning of 2020, not knowing what was going to happen with the pandemic. When the pandemic hit in March and April, the only issues that we had was a lot of the properties, we couldn't have a lot of crews inside, the properties. And that has kind of changed. Like everybody, my painters and my flooring guys and stuff, everybody was concerned, like how many people are at the property. Now, no one's asking any questions, and most people are not even wearing masks at the property because it's too hot down here. And so they're not as worried. I think that, obviously we were all on like high alert of, getting this thing and going through that at the beginning. But I think now everybody's just kind of like, yeah, let me just throw the mask off, and half the people are vaccinated. So we're not really running into any, labor issues or anything right now. Like I said, it's just more of a supply issue. As far as pricing goes, we have definitely increased our pricing to. It's interesting because I have a mentor program. I teach people how to invest in real estate, and obviously one of the most important questions that my students ask me is, how do I analyze this property and come up with a purchase price and or a sale price? Because even if you're wholesaling properties to a rehabber, you still are supposed to leave enough meat on the bone for the rehabber to be able to make money as well. Well, there's two issues there. One issue is that, like Chantal said, there's no inventory anywhere. So if you're trying to find properties on the MLS or auctions, good luck, because there's really nothing at the auction. Here in Florida, we're seeing people getting sale dates set, but they're not actually foreclosing on those properties. So a lot of rehabbers are coming to us. I'm getting, phone calls on my personal cell phone, even though we have an entire system that we send properties out to wholesale to other rehabbers. And they're calling me like, hey, do you have anything else? Like, listen, if I could give you some extra money or this and that, like they're almost trying to bribe me, which doesn't make any sense because it's anyways. But that's kind of what we're seeing, the same thing as far as inventory. Now, Chantal, where do you guys find your inventory? How are you finding your deals right now?
Absolutely. So this is a time where you have to get creative. You have to talk directly to the seller. That's, in my opinion, that's been the best way to get inventory. New Jersey is one of the states with the highest amount of foreclosures. So we were able to, in 2019 and, some part of 2020, we were able to rely on the foreclosure sales coming. But ever since that has stopped, we've had to get creative and talk directly to the seller. Now, you have a lot of resistance with some sellers because of everything going on, they might be a little bit hesitant to move away or sell their property. Right. So, and then you have the other side on the same token. Some sellers are like, I cannot wait to get out of here, go down to Florida. So, so
that's what I was going to ask you as well. Are you finding that that's hurting the business a little bit? Is there a lot of people relocating, or is just that frenzy time where everybody is trying to just buy a house?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, so in New Jersey, we've always had negative migration. People have always moved out. It's like a 65 to 35 here, like 65% people moving out, 35 coming in. But what we do also have in New Jersey is a lot of activity within the state. So you'll have people coming in from Jersey City, which is the city part next to New York, moving into the suburbs, and then vice versa. So that activity keeps us really busy.
Okay. So in regards to pricing, I'm seeing the same thing in Florida as I am in Ohio, but actually more in Florida. We have been able to inflate our prices quite significantly. So the way we analyze properties here quite simply is we take the ARV, after repair value, and we usually try to use a conservative number on, the comparable properties that have sold in the last 6 months that have been, rehabbed and sold to end buyers. And we multiply that number by 0.75 and we deduct the rehab costs. And that usually got us to not a low ball offer on a property, but a low enough that we had room to, to come a little bit higher. We're still using that same formula to buy properties, except we've changed the 0.75 to now we're almost up to 0.85 because we know we can pay more for the property on this end because we know after we rehab it and sell it, we're going to be able to get that money back out on the back end. When we look at ARVs, we're generally taking, I would say about almost a 10% above what we consider what we would think the ARV is right now. So if I got an ARV of $300,000, I'm probably setting that sale price for $329,000 to put it on the market. As far as appraisals go, we're seeing for the most part properties appraised. We had 2 properties in Ohio that for whatever reason, in almost the same pocket of area that we've done several other rehabs, we've seen now over the last 30 days, properties are not meeting those high appraisals. Before we were setting these high prices and the property was getting appraised at that price because there was another sale 2 weeks ago that just skyrocketed the ARV in that area. In Ohio, we're starting to kind of see that calm down just a little bit. In Florida, not quite yet. We're still setting that ARV a little bit higher. I mean, under normal circumstances, I'm pretty good at coming up with like, this is my buy price, this is my sale price. I know in this neighborhood what we're going to be able to sell this property for. Properties in this neighborhood don't sell for more than $325,000, but this is the day and age now where you can set that bar a little bit higher. Also, one of the things that we've been doing, and Chantal, I don't know if you guys have been doing this as well, but when we put the property out, and we take in a contract, we usually have them sign an addendum that says if the property doesn't appraise, they're going to have to come out of pocket for that because that's the agreed price. Now, in normal times, if a property doesn't appraise, if all parties agree, you're just going to obviously lower the price to whatever that appraisal is. But we're seeing people come out, 10, 15. We had a buyer that came out $22,000 out of pocket. And partly was they just really, wanted the house. But we're just seeing people just in a frenzy, overpay even outside of appraisals on these properties as well. So it's really been kind of interesting. So let's take the discussion back to Frank. And guys, by the way, put your questions in the chat. We will definitely be doing a Q&A, and Frank and Chantal and myself will answer any questions that you guys have. So Frank, tell us a little bit about what you're seeing trend-wise, in the markets in the 27 states that you guys are at, a little bit more than half the United States, but what are you guys seeing? Where are you seeing the most money going to? Where are you seeing most of the rehabbing happening?
Yeah, so we're really booming in Florida. Okay, so we're doing great in Florida. Georgia's doing well, Texas, California, Arizona, Colorado, really even in Tennessee. Okay, so we're even seeing like Nashville and places like that. And kind of to address some of the points you were making earlier, we are seeing a migration away from some of the bigger cities. So with the whole COVID thing, people are working from home and kind of have figured out how to work from home. And, and it's allowing people to move out of the high tax cities, some of the urban environments, and they're moving more into smaller towns or, more suburban, away from the bigger towns. So we're seeing a lot of that migration away from the big cities, and like Colorado, some of these places are really picking up. So that's one of the things that we've observed for sure.
Right, and that definitely makes a big difference. So let's talk about now, forecasting, because that's always what I call a crystal ball question, but people always want to know, what do you think is going to happen for the rest of this year going into 2022? So Frank, what are you guys expecting? I'm, sitting down having a meeting at the round table there, and what are you guys forecasting for 2021 and 2022 on the lending side?
Yeah, so from our business, I think it's important to know that we did not see the foreclosure rates bump up in our business. Like, we didn't see problems with people paying. We don't see people stuck with the properties. So that was kind of a surprise. Okay, we were worried that maybe default rates and delinquencies would get out of hand. They're actually running very well. Okay, so from a lending side, we're comfortable enough that we've been opening that credit box and kind of allowing to be more aggressive with our lending. So if that's any indication, we still have strong confidence in the market. But to your other panelist point, the inventory is low, okay, and folks are having having problems sourcing properties to buy, and they're competing with folks that are paying a lot of money to buy these properties. So it's getting more expensive, and I would say that's leading to some more valuation issues.
Right.
Okay, so the appraisers are just crazy busy right now, internal valuation, things like that. It's just people are paying more for properties. So again, no crystal ball, but there's a lot of talk about the bubble bursting. We don't see it bursting just yet.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of of the same mindset. I don't think that this is necessarily going to be an overnight situation like it was in 2007 and 8. Although, once I start seeing, because one of the things that I do to sort of monitor and gauge, especially in the state of Florida, of what is coming, is I start looking at, we use REIA and we look at, the Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach counties, Orlando, Tampa, Jacksonville, and we start monitoring increasing of foreclosure cases. And we've actually started to see a very small uptick right now in Florida on foreclosure cases, and people actually starting to get final judgments now. From what my understanding is now, and I've heard this from a couple of different sources now, is that auction.com is basically said that they are going to be having 1.7 million foreclosures that are coming over to them that they are going to be starting to liquidate. So that is something that is going to be happening soon. The moratorium now is extended to, I believe it's June 30th. So I guess that's going to be kind of like that, that's going to be kind of like the point where everybody, in June is going to kind of like be waiting for that June 30th and see if they're going to be extending anything. But I think it's just, my own opinion is that this doesn't matter to me what administration is in the White House. The banks have always been the most powerful lobbyists, in the world. And at a certain point in time, from what most financial analysts that I go to that are my mentors say that eventually the banks have to start getting these bad debt off their books. They have to start doing something about this. So and I don't know what that's really going to look like in regards to the release of inventory, because the problem is the sharks are swimming around the water waiting for the inventory, right? And so as soon as these things start to drop in the water, everybody and their mother is just going to be trying to buy up those potential rehab, properties, even some buy and hold properties as well. But, I'm going to continue. And what we're kind of doing is we're looking at in our rehabbing model, and I'm doing this for Ohio and for Florida. And I'll be doing the same for North Carolina as I start some projects there, hopefully getting some inventory here over the next month or two, is we're going to be looking at projects as we start to acquire some more projects for rehabbing. We're going to start looking for those projects now to be a shorter end rehab. I'm not trying to take on any 8 or 12 month projects or anything, because I don't want to still be rehabbing on a project when the market does crash. And I want to be able to have a quicker exit strategy. So we're kind of looking at that now with our acquisitions. If properties are in really, really bad shape and it looks like it's going to take and require just a ton of permitting and a ton of time, we're probably going to wholesale those. Properties that are, just need a quick fix. I've got a property that we just picked up that it's got a good roof on it, just needs AC. This is in Central Florida, just needs AC and some updating in the kitchen and bathrooms. We'll get in and out of there in almost 30 days and get that sold. The 2 brand new builds that we're doing are the only concerns that I kind of have right now. I kind of imagine, back when the market crashed before and you'd be driving past, a building site and they'd have like the rebar and everything, but it would have like grass growing out of it. I don't want my new builds to look like that, but hopefully from what Frank is saying as well, that it's not just going to be an overnight thing, June 30th, that if that moratorium's lifted, that's it, game over. I think it will take, a good 3 to 6 months to sort of really start catching, effect to it. So we're just kind of monitoring their, things up to that point. So before we take any questions, well, I guess, Rebecca, is there any questions that have come in that we need to?
So Frank has actually answered most of the ones that have come in over here, especially that had to do with him. The one that I think we missed is licensing in the 27 states that you've listed. So not necessarily you, but the team, right?
Yeah. So I'm a sales manager. I'm not an individual producer. Okay, but I am licensed and like as a manager in the states that require it, like Nevada and some others. So I think I'm licensed in 4 states myself. Okay, but my team is licensed in the states that I showed listed in the chat.
Awesome. I also wanted to point out with the discussions that we're having on foreclosure, I asked Brad to put a link in to the 2 stories that he has posted recently on Real Estate Investing Today. So for those of you that don't know, Brad runs our news blog and keeps you updated on all of those things. So as trends start to happen, you can find those and the information related to those on realestateinvestingtoday.com. And he's put the 2 articles on foreclosures here in the chat bar so that you can reference those as well. I have another quick question though. As the eviction moratorium wears on and some landlords are really getting pinched with this, are you seeing rentals come on the market, not necessarily inventory of those single family homes, but maybe an SFR that's, single family that's been a rental, or, duplexes and such that are rentals? Are you seeing those start to trickle onto the market as people are getting frustrated in that space? And especially with all of the legislation, Jane's fighting it in Chicago in a major way. We're seeing things in, Missouri and Kansas in a major way. So in Colorado has just had an influx of awful legislation in the last little bit. Do you see that affecting inventory?
I guess I can start on that question. So as we source a lot of off-market properties, we market to thousands of homeowners, people facing foreclosure, probates, and we've always had a large campaign for non-owner occupied, what I love to call my tired of being a landlord campaign. And we've been targeting a lot of non-owner occupieds out of state, because imagining, the difficulties in renting, managing a rental property across state lines. It's even, more difficult when there's a pandemic and people can't, travel and get down here and everything else. So I think it kind of makes it tough. I mean, we have about 2.6 million renters here in the state of Florida. We have a pretty large, rental market, and there's a lot of single family homes that are rentals as well, because a lot of the rental properties that are situated on the coastline are usually out of the financial reach of a lot of people. So you have your central areas, especially like Orlando. There's a lot of rental properties in that market as well. But we haven't seen a lot of rental properties coming back on the market. We haven't seen the trend, at least, that a lot of people that are renting properties are now starting to sell their properties. At least we haven't seen that. Chinto, have you guys seen that in New Jersey?
Yeah, we've seen a lot of landlords that are looking to migrate outside of New Jersey and kind of liquidate all of the stuff they have. Because like you said, they don't want to manage rental property across state lines. It's actually been a great lead source for us as well. People are more likely to not want to go through that management headache. So I think moving forward, we'll probably see a lot more of that.
Okay. And Frank, anything in regards to you guys are doing lending for rental properties as well? Are you seeing any type of trends and more people that are getting lending for buying and purchasing rental properties?
Yeah, so the buy and hold strategy is certainly something that a lot of folks are taking advantage of right now. It's really been a great addition to our product line. So like I said, we were primarily doing fix and flip, doing the bridge lending, but really about half of our business right now, it's really come on strong. And we just added an interest only product to that, or an interest only option to the rental program. So I posted in the chat there that we do 5171 ARMs, we do 30-year fixed, we do the interest only. So people are looking at different strategies, I guess, to answer your question. Okay, it's not just fix and flip, but people are taking advantage of getting the rentals and taking that advantage too.
Okay, very good.
So Frank, I know that you said that you're lending up to 4 units. Does
Yes.
anybody on the panel have a resource for 10 to 30 units? We're getting that question. I know when Dave and his partner were on from CBRE, they were saying that multifamily is opening their arms a little bit more now with conventional banks, and that sometimes it can be your best route with the multifamily. But do you all have any other advice for people in that range? Any input?
I don't at the time, but I could get back. I can ask some of my contacts to recommend a lender for that and get back to you.
Very much appreciated. Any other questions for the panel? Any advice, guys, that, for those that are worried about continuing to operate in this environment?
Well, I mean, as an investor, and what I teach my students as well, is always having multiple exit strategies. If you were going to implement a multiple exit strategy on your rehab houses, now would be the time to do so. So if you have a property that you're fixing up, that when you're done fixing it up would still possibly cash flow, or at least be able to, keep your head above water if you had to rent it out. That is something that you should definitely be looking into your projects. Like I said, I'm not taking on any major projects that are going to be an 8 to 10 or 12 month rehab. I want to get in and out in 3 months or less. So I would suggest taking those projects on as well. As far as price points, For Ohio, our price point, our sweet spot has been under the $350,000 range. In Florida, it's probably just under the $400,000 range. But just keeping in mind, talk to your lenders, and when you're going to buy a project, the project that has the potential for more buyers has a more potential to sell. So, if a lender says, yeah, we do FHA up to this point, conventional, these kind of things, you want to take that in mind, because, VA loans, FHA loans are going to have, certain guidelines that are going to follow. So the most important thing as a rehabber is to be able to get that property sold when you're done. So that's what I would suggest. Yeah.
I agree with you, Ryan. And just to add to that, for anyone that's kind of wary about investing or about the market, we're still missing 3.3 or 4 million houses, that are shortage of supply. So I think the next 3 to 5 year window for rehabbers is probably going to be one of the greatest times to be in the business. Our value comes from being able to take, dilapidated property and put it back on the market in great condition. I think the best way to do that is stay within the median. I wouldn't try to take on like a 7,000 square foot rehab right now. You would probably want to, 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom style house. That would probably be the best way to kind of get in the game.
Absolutely. Any other questions, Rebecca? Is that it?
That's it. I am going to show, I am getting a lot of questions about your all's contact information. So I'm going to, bring the PowerPoint back up,
And while you're bringing that up, I just want to tell, Frank and Chantal, thank you guys so much for taking the time today. We really appreciate it. We'll put your information out there on the email as well. And Rebecca will show it here again today. Guys, if you got, houses in New Jersey that you're not going to rehab and you want to wholesale them to someone, you've got a buyer right there. And Frank's in 27 states. Lending Home is awesome. Their customer service, their knowledge, how easy they make things, to work with. They're a reason why they're not just a corporate member of ours, but we also do business with them as well, because we love doing business with Lending Home. So thank you guys so much for coming today.
And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chantal, can I ask would it be okay for people to reach out to you just to pick your brain, especially if they're in your area?
Absolutely. Anyone
Awesome.
can feel free to reach out to me.
Terrific. So that answers most of the questions there. Others were pretty specific questions that they actually need to reach out to each of you to discuss instead of actually asking on the call. But here's the information for all 3 of our panelists. As Ryan said, it'll come out to you in other ways as well, but I want to give you just a second to be writing that down while Charles comes online for the legislative update. As Ryan said, again, thank you all so much for sharing your time and knowledge with us and being available.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So Charles, are you ready? And I will stop sharing screen.
I am. All right. Let's think, folks, it's been about a year since we've been doing this. The panic and stress of the first meeting we had was about a year ago, and was just reflecting on that in the notes here. A couple of things. One is, I want to mention this, is I mentioned a little bit of this in the previous meeting in March, not to overreact right now. And there's a lot of discussion about the eviction moratorium, even the foreclosure moratorium has been extended till the end of June. They've got them in sync now. There have been cases in the 5th district, which is down in Texas, down in the 6th district, which is actually northern Ohio and eastern Tennessee, that have had rulings against the government. In fact, one ruling was a request that the government put a stay in place so that the eviction moratorium could remain. And a 3-judge panel of federal judges said, we don't believe the government's going to win on their merits. And people said, okay, it's done, it's over. It's like, no, it's not. Now, what's going on is, what's not being covered is, previously there was a case in Atlanta, Georgia. There's a case down in New Orleans. And these cases were for the government. These last 3 have been against the government. So this is a situation where we have a split districts. So the Supreme Court is looking to take one of these forward. The CDC and the specifically the Department of Justice, which is their attorney, does not necessarily want to move that to the full Supreme Court for a hearing. So they're trying not to appeal it to that next level. What that means is these rulings are what's called influential. They are not precedent. Okay. Some courts will follow them, some courts will not. We've had extensive discussion along a couple of lines. There was one email that came out and that floated around all over the place like wildfire that said a member of an association that appealed, somehow that association suddenly had standing, and that standing then would apply to all of its members across the country. Nobody has seen that, and we have been weighing that heavily with different attorneys and constitutional attorneys. The last thing we want is for you to share something like that or try something like that and it go to, wave it in front of the wrong judge's face, you're gonna be held in contempt. The judges do have authority in their districts. They do have authority in their courts. And folks, we've got 27 states and literally numerous municipalities and courts that have eviction moratoriums in place above and beyond what the federal has. Some of those have expired. Some of those are still in place. A lot of them have synced up with the federal just to keep it simple. But folks, there's still a lot of other rules out there, not just the CDC. Now, if this goes away at the end of June, which is what it's set for right now, there's a good chance we will, kind of start to see a washing out and a change out of those who were not responsive, who used the declaration to hide and did not do what they're supposed to do, which is to go get funding and help. That funding and help has hit. Almost every state has programs up at this point. The money is there. And at this point, the money is actually, I'll just mention something, 65% of those funds, the stimulus funds that were given out in December that have been going forward, hitting in February into the states and municipalities and rolling out starting in March, 65% of that money has to be spent by September 15th. So we're talking $25 billion in rental assistance has to be spent by September 15th. So the money is being shoved out there as fast as possible. Not every organization is doing it, as well or as correctly as they should. However, it is going out. If you are having problems with places, reach out to local elected officials, let them know that you're interested in rental assistance, you want to participate, you want to be one of the folks that are helping on this. That is part of how we're going to address the eviction moratorium. When those numbers drop off so that there aren't very many declarations, people aren't saying, hey, I'm impacted, I don't have money. As that argument goes away, the eviction moratorium justification goes away as well. So bear that in mind. The other piece I want to mention is think back pre-COVID, think back a year ago. One of the issues we were dealing with is the housing affordability. And our panelists were just talking about some of the pricing and the cost of housing going up. This is especially so for housing affordability issues. This is a mantra that's been kind of being pounded behind the scenes. And how do you handle this issue? We've just been talking about, there's somewhere between 2.5 to 3 million shortfall of homes in the US. Folks, we're the ones that are going to answer that solution. We've got the solution. We can be the solution. Reaching out to local municipalities. I was just on a conference call at 2:00 and just reiterated that and literally had one of the municipal folks mention what was an idea we had talked about. And he said, I think this would be a good idea. I'm like, thank you. How do you take some of these vacant properties that are out there that cities are sitting on, some of the stuff and move it through the system? And they're looking at focusing some of their funds that they're getting in stimulus funds to expedite all of the legal issues behind the scenes to clear those titles and get those properties out there to investors to rehab because they want the capital put in it. As we all know, there's plenty of capital out there. There's plenty of money flowing. About $13 trillion the feds have spent and pushed into it. How that is spent is going to impact where we go and whether that, reset, or somebody used the word that starts with a C. I won't say that word, but there may be some sort of economic impact in the future. Right now, we talked about this, Rebecca, and I'll stay in my lane for the most part I'll let her handle most of the economics. But one of the things we were talking about on the side was, folks, internationally, there are still countries that are shutting down. There are still countries that are not doing well. So a lot of the money is still flowing into the United States as the safe haven. And that is a good thing for us. The other side to it is our GDP, our income. And folks, you've seen this. People are working from home and they're actually being more productive. And our productivity rates have actually jumped substantially in such a degree that it has blown away every manager and naysayer about working from home and all that. Now, the downside is some of us are working from home till 7 or 8 o'clock, or we go up in the evening and work and do things as well. But that GDP across the country has a net benefit, a net plus, that our dollar is staying up in value. Citibank said last year that the US dollar would devalue by 20% this year. They've now come back out as of the end of last month, beginning of this month, saying that's not going to happen. We're not seeing that 20% reduction, in part because we are doing okay, but everybody else is doing worse. So we're still the better bet. That wasn't a glowing round of applause, I know, but just understand that's where we're at economically. So when this comes forward, and you're going to continue going, I should say, as this year goes forward, keep an eye out. Our president made an excellent point about making sure you're not doing a long-term redevelopment, but keep an eye out for those, sounds that you hear in your community of things starting to slow down, properties breaking up, properties going into eviction, into foreclosure. So those are the kinds of things to keep an eye out on, and partner with your local municipalities. Now's a great time to build a relationship of, hey, we're the investors. We're willing to help put the capital back into some of these communities. Use some of your money that you've got from stimulus. Help us reclaim your city and help us regrow it. So that's what I'll leave you with. Housing affordability, again, eviction moratorium, and rental assistance. Those three things are kind of top of mind for everybody right now.
One quick question, Charles. In the chat, someone asked if we think that there will be a possible class action suit if they decide to string this farther than the eviction moratorium, that is, farther than June. And what would that look like?
So behind the scenes, what I'm hearing, and we've been talking with a couple of attorneys, and then there's a number of other attorneys, everybody's trying to be real careful right now. And there was actually some initiative I've heard from Pacific and a couple others to maybe bring forward a couple of new cases. And everybody's trying to be very careful because the CDC is really looking for a bad fact pattern or something they would consider a good fact pattern to challenge so that they could win this case. Nobody wants to give them that fact pattern. So what they're trying to do is make sure that the fact patterns we bring forward, whether it's, again, Texas, Tennessee, Georgia, or excuse me, Texas, Tennessee, or Michigan, have good fact patterns. And even the Georgia fact pattern was a good fact pattern, but it's still a situation of it was too early. They brought that forward in October and November. And if you remember what mentality was then, it was like, no, sit tight or be hold tight. And the judges basically ruled on that and said, this isn't a ripe issue yet. So the likelihood is, again, and not even going into the putting on my legal hat, I'll leave that to Joe and Jane and a few of the other attorneys. Getting a class action on something like this, not likely on a federal situation. What's more likely is you're going to have one of these cases gets appealed and actually goes to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court picks it up because we have split jurisdictions. We have some jurisdictions saying, yes, we support it. Other jurisdictions saying, no, we do not support it. That is more likely what we'll see in a timely fashion.
And Jane made a good point that we have to be really careful about celebrating when evictions open up. It's certainly no cause for celebration that we're having to evict. It's not good for our customer, that is the resident, and it's not good for us. How can we prepare to be a good resource as assuming this is going to open? How do we go about this in a way that is good, as good as possible for everyone that's involved? How do we start preparing for that now?
So whenever somebody asks me about the eviction moratorium, my first response is, there's rental assistance out there. That was a win that we had both in the CARES Act back in April of last year, in December of this year for December of 2020 for $25 billion. And then again in March with the second round of stimulus, or most recent stimulus, and that was another 21.5 billion. So focusing on the eviction moratorium, quite frankly, is a way I just kind of say, that's one piece of it. But the reality is that's in place because people are hurting for money. They were hurt by COVID and they're hurt by shutdowns. So here's where you can go with this. This is the rental assistance. Here's where you can go. I think Brad just put up the state by state link. And folks, these are the programs you want to focus on. You want to make sure that you're getting that resource out to your members. And if anybody in the press asks you, you say, look, on our website, we have this information about resources. Please tell everyone to go do it. And what we're finding is, and this is one of the most dangerous things for some of our small owners, especially, they may only have a 4-family. They've got 2 people who've been in there 6 months, 8 months, not paying. And they go, you know what? I just don't feel like this money's going to be for me. And they move out. When the money could have been there and covered, imagine 6 and 8 months of rent, 14 months of rent, no matter where you're at in the country, that's a big dollar amount. And that's a big impact on an owner. So making sure you're focusing on getting the residents connected and getting the property owner connected with that rental assistance is absolutely crucial.
So yes, as Charles said, Brad posted the link to Real Estate Investing Today and those resources. And then Lori just posted, we have a brochure that you can use, print out, and use to start the discussion with your resident to talk about how they can apply for funds, what some of those resources are for them. And if they need more help than that, it can be your local food bank. It could be, many of those resources, and that's all in the back so that you can modify that for your particular location. So please make sure that you use those resources. Jane says that Illinois is not yet distributing the December money. So you've got some states that are making it super challenging and tying lots of strings to that some of our owners are not comfortable agreeing to because of, kind of what that would mean long term. We also have a post that says, I recently filed a small claim on a rental property where not paying rent or applying for emergency rental assistance. The judge set my case aside as an attempt to eviction. I just responded with the motion to vacate his order for reason that they would not apply for the rental assistance that they qualify for, waiting to see if the judge changes his position. Do you have any ideas on where to go from here? We do not give legal advice.
Yes, I'll defer on the legal
not
advice.
in that business. You may want to talk to your local attorney, but Charles, just not in a legal advice way, but kind of practical application and what they can talk to an attorney about.
Well, I'm going to say, actually, let me back up for a second onto the Illinois situation. And no matter what your municipality or state, if they're not releasing the funds, you want to be one of the folks out there saying these funds have to be 65% spent by September 15th. If they are not spent, they're going to go away, which does not benefit anybody in your community, because that's what will happen. That's exactly what the legislation says. And states that know this are functioning to move that money out into people's hands as fast as possible. So adding on any kind of strings, adding on or slowing down the process is going to end up that those residents, your neighbors, are going to lose out on money. And that's a message that you can take to the press and say, hey, the situation that they're doing, the fact that they're not moving, local residents, our neighbors, are going to miss out on this help.
I also have a question about when is it safe to, kind of put homes for rent again? And I will answer this a little bit because I have not ever stopped. I don't know if I can say we were just super lucky, but we have not had a problem during this time. I'm going to direct them to go back and watch the podcast with Dave Pickron from Rent Perfect about choosing the right person as you do begin to open your doors again to rent, and that could be now. So their rental history, the kind, whether or not they have paid their landlord, that property owner during this time period, whether it was with rental assistance, working with social agencies, or even religious agencies to get funds, if they were responsible enough to be resourceful and find a way to get that rent paid, whether they still had a job and were working from home and still employed, or they found other ways to make it happen. That's the kind of resident you want, one that has been responsible during this time. And in most states, some states, they're trying to limit what you can see. And that's on that again. On his session again, he talks about all of that, but go back and listen to that. His podcasts can be found on Real Estate Investing Today. We curate podcasts from some of the contributors that we think highly of. Brad just put that link in there. And then Lori will put in the link of the webinar that he did for us. Actually, Lori, if we could put both, the one that was our Friday session and then his follow-up, because I think they can both be helpful. But just about, how do we look for the best quality resident during kind of the madness that has been the last year, and what does their history now, how much more important is that, and how do you evaluate that? Input on that, Charles? Since I jumped in ahead of you there, sorry.
No, you're fine. I was actually going to respond to John there about a lot of communities, folks, are allowing based on the legislation, allowing the property owner, the housing provider, to go ahead and fill out paperwork. You can't fill it out and just submit it. You do have to get a signature or some set of information from the resident. But if you've got a resident who's working with you, it usually makes it a little faster and easier, especially for residents who may not be able to scan something, digitize some of their information. And this can be an easier way to get the information in there. And please understand, if you do, make sure you answer this. Almost everybody who will provide a check to you or a check to any of our members is going to ask for an I-9. They're going to ask for some sort of documentation. You're going to have to register. So make sure you've got that, whichever organization it's going into or enterprise, make sure you've got that information ready to provide as well.
I think that's it, and we are 2 minutes over. So no, we made it with all of the questions. The resources are right there in your chat. If you want to keep those, you can download the chat, and then you'll have all of the articles, all of the links, all of the webinars, and the podcasts available to you. So you can just download the chat from today's session. You'll have it immediately. You will also have the replay, the notes, the contact information, and all of the other goodies from today that will be sent back out to you as a wrap up that Lori sends after these calls. So thank you so much for being with us, Mr. President. I want to turn it back to you.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here today. We will see you guys. What is our next call? May, I want to say it's
Third Friday of May. I don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry.
okay. Well, it's
May
going to be a month
21st.
from now in May. We'll be sending out an email to update you guys on what that official date is. But everybody, thank you guys for joining us. Have a great weekend and stay safe out there.
Take care.
Have a great weekend, guys. Thank you.